welcome back to the Journey to the FarLands. All right. Well, let's see here. I got bunches of stuff. Probably need to get rid of some of it. So let's get out of here. Make sure there is no nasty things about. Nasty explosive things. There. And now, let's see. Make sure of my directions here. There's the sunrise. I need to go the other way. Here we go. All right. Heading in the right direction. That's a great way to start off. Anyway, yeah. I have not forgotten. And shut up, cow. I really don't want to hear you. Nobody wants to hear you, ever. Anyway, yeah, I've had a number of issues and stuff and things and whatnot. And one of which is I have to point out that the sound. I have no idea at this point how well that's going to turn out. But, what I've got going on not only is my air conditioner running, which I'm probably not going to turn that off until September or October. I also have a fan running. And the arrangement with this fan is that the fan is sitting next to my computer tower. The tower, by the way, which has the side removed from it. And this 20-inch box fan is blowing air into the side of the computer tower to kind of help out the cooling. And that seems to be providing a little bit enough extra cooling that I don't have random shutdowns and such. I still haven't isolated the exact problem and whatnot, but this is at least keeping things mostly functional. And yeah, I will of course be using Audacity to remove as much of the noise as I can, but you never know exactly how effective that's going to be until you actually do it. I mean, Audacity is awesome, and it's capable of quite a lot, but anything has its limits. You know, it can do just so much. And let's see. Let's collect a bit of wool, huh? Yeah. Don't think you're going to escape. All right. So, that having been said, the update on the whole computer thermal issue thing, well, before I get to that, how about if I do the standard everyday, every episode sort of thing? The size of the world this morning is 5,774.3 megabytes. Getting to be a pretty good size. I know it takes almost 5 minutes to make a backup copy because that world save has grown to the point where there's over 3,600 files involved. Yeah. It's pretty big. And so, like I said, I haven't exactly figured out what the main problem with the sound, with the thermal issues is. just that it's still there. I am still, no matter what I do, unable to run Fallout for more than a minute or two, because much more than that, and I get a hard lockup, a very hard lockup, the kind where the main monitor goes black, the secondary monitor goes all white, there is a steady buzzing sound coming out of the speakers, and the only cure for that particular lockup is to turn the main power switch off. Yeah, and do a hard reboot. Anyway, yeah. And I'm thinking that there is actually any number of things that need to be replaced. Off the top of my head, there is the power supply, which someone pointed out that some of the symptoms I was talking about sounded like a power supply issue, and I can believe that. There is the obvious, the graphics card, which may very well need replacing, because who knows how much damage was done by the overheat issue. I mean, it may have been around for quite a while, and I only just noticed it recently because the ambient air temperature has gotten so hot lately, with the weather turning hot, that that just kind of pushed it over the edge beyond the limit, and that's when things went kablongo, you know? So what I've decided to do is I'm going to start saving, or I have started saving, with the idea of I'm going to get replacement components to get things going. And if only because it is the least expensive of the various and sundry things that need to be replaced, I'm going to start with the power supply. And go for replacing it first. And I noticed something about this power supply when I was checking things out. You see, when I built this computer, what was it, 2014? I distinctly remember a 850 watt power supply. At least that's what I wanted to put in here. And I know that some will say, well, you don't need that much. Well, then it will not work as hard, you know. If it's capable of delivering 850 watts and I don't need that much, then it won't work as hard. You know, there's a certain logic to that. But, as it turns out, the power supply currently in there is a 650 watt power supply. And I'm not so 100% sure that's completely enough. I mean, obviously it has been enough for several years, but I'm betting it's worked a lot harder than an 800 would. An 800 wouldn't work nearly as hard as this one has had to. And so that would mean more stress on the components, more thermal stress, and so on. And that could make it prone to failure prematurely. At least that's my working theory, and it sounds reasonable to me. So the first step is replace the power supply. And in doing so, I will put in an 850 watt power supply. Now, this is going to mean basically I have to save up the money for it, and not just the money for it, but also for shipping, because, you know, the price tag is never the total price, because you also have to pay for the shipping and so on. And so I figured that's going to be in the neighborhood of $100 or more, just to get the power supply taken care of. Once that is taken care of, the next thing to save up, to get, will be a new graphics card. And I've already picked out which one I want. And surprisingly enough, no, it is not going to be one of these fancy-dancy, newfangled 980s or 1080s or stuff like that, because those things are still extremely mucho expensivo, you know. Instead, what I've decided to do, and I've done some looking around, and they can still be found, is I'm going to look around and I'm going to find, and when I can afford to, buy a GeForce GTX 780 Ti. Because that card has a reputation for being an awesome graphics card from way back. Well, from back as far as it goes. But that's the graphics card that I'm going to eventually get. Granted, it may take several months to acquire the funding for it, but I will, at one point or another. Once the graphics card is replaced, I'm going to start shopping for a new motherboard. Because the current motherboard has already shown some failure. Several months back, I had a problem with graphics in that, because one of the things I was doing was I was using the motherboard's onboard graphics solution, the onboard VGA graphics. I was using that to drive my second monitor. And it failed. It stopped working completely. I mean, the driver software can't detect it. Windows can't detect it anymore where it could before. So that tells me that part of the motherboard is no longer working. And a thing that I learned a long time ago through experience is that when the motherboard starts to fail, you know, absolutely, without doubt, without any shadow of a hope of a thought of a doubt, that it is eventually going to fail completely. And I think that I have done very well in the fact that it has not done so yet. You know, so, yeah. I've been meaning to pick up a supply of coal for a while now. There we go. And so, a new motherboard. And I know what I'm going to do with that, too. Because replacing a motherboard is a pretty big thing to replace. And Windows has this thing about it. If the hardware changes too much, Windows starts to think, hey, I'm not running on the same computer I was installed on. I need to stop working. Or something like that, you know. And then you get a bunch of back and forth with Microsoft and whatnot about licensing and the fact that, hey, I'm just putting new stuff on my computer. I'm not pirating your operating system or anything. Yeah. I already had that little go-round with Microsoft once when I built this machine. When I first installed the operating system on it, I had a nice little half an hour go-round with the friendly neighborhood folks at Microsoft. And I would prefer not to have such an adventure again. Now, can I get down? Sure. Yeah, here we go. There. Anyhow, so get the I have the solution. I am going to look for and purchase a factory refurbished copy of the same motherboard that I've got in here now. I will get one that has been factory refurbished, which makes it essentially the same as a brand new one. And the same make, same model, everything exactly the same. And I will just pull everything off the original one, plug it onto the new one, bingo. This way, Windows doesn't look in there and see a massive change and give me a bunch of hassle that I really don't need. At least that's the theory. We'll find out eventually if that actually works or not, because that's going to be a fair amount of savings down the road. Yeah, so there's the situation, and there's my plan for dealing with it. And hopefully it all works out good. I get things taken care of, preferably before there is any kind of major failure of the OMG, what am I going to do now variety. Because, you know, like for example, this happens to be my only internet-capable computer. So if something went south there, I would have something of a major problem. It's the only thing I have that can run Minecraft and Skyrim and Fallout. Well, when everything's working, it can run Fallout. And whatever other things that I make videos with and so on. So I very much need for this thing not to suffer catastrophic failure. And at some point, it would be awesome, truly awesome, if I could arrange to have a second desktop computer, if only to function as a backup machine in the event of some catastrophic failure. I could continue by just moving hard drives from one to another and keep on going. One hopes, anyway. Anyway, whoops. Darn near fell down a long way. Well, I've been ranting about that for some time. Well, not ranting, just kind of carrying on. Because it's kind of a major big deal for me. You know, if this thing fails, I am in a world of, oh crap, with a situation that could take me months to get out of, you know, to get things fixed up and going again. So, yeah, it's kind of a big deal for me. In other news, recently, in a recent-ish video, I announced that I was going for, and in fact, that video was day one of a new smoke-free event. And it was announced as day one of an effort that was originally targeting 60 days smoke-free. And I'll tell you right straight up front, so far, that effort is a complete, total, utter, absolute failure. But this is not a surprise to me. Not in the least. Because, well, such things are often difficult-ish. Okay, got an end of a second day coming up here. Well, the prior smoke-free event, the one that I didn't tell anybody about until it was over, yeah, that started in late March. What you don't know is that I made the decision to do it in mid-January. Yeah. It took a lot of trying and failing to get that started. Because 40-plus year habits are very difficult to break, and don't let anybody ever tell you otherwise. All right, let's see if I can reuse this boat. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I decided to do that. It was in mid-January, and it took me all the way into late March to actually get beyond day 5. A lot of trying and failing, a lot of frustration, a lot of getting really, really aggravated and annoyed with myself and life in general, and so on and so forth. So it's no surprise to me that this effort, since I announced it, has already seen three restarts. It happens. You know, get up here. I was going to do that. There. Yeah, it's like, it's one of those habits. You know, you've been doing it so long, you do it without even thinking about it. You know, it's just an ingrained part of how life is. You know, it's just a thing that you do, and you do it automatically, mostly without even thinking about it. And even though when I started this, I made sure that I did not have a supply of smokes on hand, because I already know that if I have them, I will use them. So I made sure to start that without having any in the house. Any at all. Nothing. And, part of the things that you can do automatically without even thinking about it, especially when it's a hot day and you're worn out and all you want to do is go home and sit down and cool off with a cold beverage of some form. And you get done with the store and you go home and you realize, wow, I bought myself a pack without even realizing it. Because it's something that I've been doing for so many years, so many decades. Yeah. And, of course, like I said, if I have them, I will use them. That's just the way it is. But I'm not giving up on it. It just means that the actual effective start, in other words, the start that actually holds, that actually takes and continues on, is yet to happen. But it will. And once I get going, once I can get past day 5 or so, then it becomes, I won't say easy, but easier, you know, to keep going. But it's getting past that day 5 time that can be the hard part. It is the hard part. You know, it's easy to just say, oh, I'm going to do this, bang, yeah, right, And that part of your brain that functions entirely on instinct and habit and stuff like that looks up at you and says, yeah, right, that's going to happen. Yeah. So, it's a thing. And it's a hard thing to deal with. And it can make for a lot of frustration. But the trick is to not give up on the idea. To keep going after it, because sooner or later you will manage to hit just the right combination of circumstances and efforts and so on that will cause something that begins to resemble success. And that next thing you know, you're 10, 15 days in, and while you're not necessarily loving it, you're surviving it, and you're beginning to get into a routine that makes it work, and so on. And, yeah. That's about it. And, of course, inevitably somebody just comes along and says, well, all you got to do is stop. Yeah? Right. I'll tell you what. You smoke for 40 years and tell me how easy it is to quit. Yeah. And if you do smoke for 40 years and manage to quit, just put it down, walk away, and not ever think about it, then hallelujah, great good fortune for you. Love to hear it. Fantastic news. More power to you and all that. Not all of us can do that. Some of us have to fight this thing every day. And it's a fight that just, it doesn't give up. It doesn't end. You know, you could be smoke-free for 3 or 4 years, and the right set of circumstances comes around, I guarantee you will light up in a heartbeat. And it will be just as if you hadn't missed a single one. Yeah, I know. I've had that situation with me. And, yeah. Anyway, I think that's probably enough about that, because if I'm not careful, it will turn into a rant. And I don't really want to be on a rant. I don't actually mean to be on a rant nearly as often as I seem to end up that way. It just turns out that way. I get started on something and I don't stop until I'm going crazy with it. Or something like that. I don't know. Right now I've got a lot of preoccupied concern. I really hope that the computer video card issue, or whatever it is that the problem is caused by, will be solved quickly and effectively and with as little outlay of cash as possible. Because I don't have a whole lot of cash to outlay. And, yeah. This is probably going to be a primary topic of concern for me until well after the problem is solved. Because I'm not going to be so foolish as to simply believe that the first application of an effort to solve it results in 100% success. Yeah. ain't gonna happen. Anyway, there we go. Moving onwards. And actually moving towards the end of this third day, so I need to start looking around for a suitable place to dig in. What does the western side of this look like? Kind of thin. I would dig all the way through. Oh boy. Alright, this works right here. Dig in a little bit. Place for some torches, which then I apply. And let's block that off and put another torch there. Dig this out. Yeah. And once again, I have to thank everyone for listening to and putting up with my carrying on that can sometimes end up sounding kind of like a crazy person ranting about whatever. I don't actually mean for things to come out that way, but sometimes it does. I need to get wood next time. Okay, I think 4 boats is going to be enough. Alright, that will take care of that. Alrighty. And so goes the end of another episode. And by the way, I really do want to get to where I'm doing these just a little bit of a whole bunch more frequently. So we'll be trying to do that coming up hopefully soon. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. I am out of here.